Right. Good afternoon, guys and girls. Welcome to today's session. My name is Belinda Malachi. Very happy to have you here today. Okay, so if you're joining us for the first time today, welcome. Right, so before we begin, please make sure your audio is on and your speaker volume is turned up. Please also note that you are automatically muted when you join the session. Okay, so this means if you want to send a question or if you want to talk to me, please send the questions via the question box. All right. Also, please download your handouts, today's slides on the handout section underneath the question box. Right, I'm going to give you a moment to download that as well. You are encouraged to ask as questions if you do not understand something. We will get to the questions either at the end of the session or I will send you feedback via email. Okay, so I've already received some of your questions from last week. I have answered them and you should receive the feedback in a day or two. Okay, also if please note that you can only ask questions that are relevant to today's topic, to today's content. Please do not ask anything outside today's topic, and please do not make any irrelevant or inappropriate comments because this can result in you being dismissed from the session. Okay, so let's keep it on today's work. Right, if you did not get to ask your question during the session, please send an email to academics@impact.co.za with your question and we will give you feedback. Right, again, if you did not get feedback, please send an email to info@impact.co.za and we will sort that out for you as soon as possible. Again, the video will be made available on the Impact YouTube channel, just in case you want to refer back, right? So I'm going to give you a moment to make sure that your audio is on, to turn up your volume. I'm also gonna give you a moment to download the slides, okay? So please do that now, right? So please download the handouts, the slides, and make sure that you can hear me. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment to get that right. Okay, I'm gonna give it a minute. Right, just to check, can everyone please indicate by show of hands if you can hear me? If you can hear me, please indicate by a show of hands before I start. Okay, I'm just waiting for everyone's hands to go up. Okay, not everyone's hands are up, so I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I'm gonna give it a moment. Okay, so we're gonna begin now. Right, so today's topic is the endocrine system. Okay, so we have learned in last week's session that our body is made up of a couple of systems. And the system that we were looking at last week was the nervous system. And we have seen that the nervous system helps keeping us alive by communicating to us what is happening in the external environment. Okay, so just like the nervous system, the endocrine system enables animals to respond to external changes and to control conditions inside our bodies. Okay, so the endocrine system enables us to respond to external changes and to control conditions inside our bodies. All right, so what is the endocrine system? It is a network of glands that secrete hormones that regulate the physical and chemical processes of the body. Also, it consists of glands that secrete hormones that regulate sexual development and growth. Okay, so the hormones that are secreted from the endocrine glands regulate our sexual development. So if our breasts grow bigger, the endocrine system played a role in that. It released a hormone that played a role in growing our breasts. If our hips become wider, the endocrine system had a role in that. A hormone was released that made our hips wider. If we are men and our voice becomes deeper, the endocrine system played a role in that because it released a hormone that made your voice deeper, or grew your hair, pubic hair. So the endocrine system has a network of glands that secrete hormones that regulate the physical and chemical processes of the body, our sexual development, as well as our growth. Okay, right. So we said that the endocrine system is a network of glands that release hormones. But what is a hormone? So a hormone is an organic chemical or substance, usually a protein, but sometimes a steroid, that is secreted by an endocrine gland. So it is a substance that is secreted by an endocrine gland and carried in the bloodstream to a target organ where it regulates a metabolic reaction. So a hormone is a substance secreted by an endocrine gland, carried in the bloodstream to a target organ. Okay, so it depends on what it is regulating, right? So if it's sexual development, then the hormone will be released into our, an example would be our breasts. That would be the target organ for a hormone that is regulating our sexual development. All right. So what is a gland? A gland is, an endocrine gland is a gland that secretes hormones into the bloodstream to their target organs, right? We've just looked at the definition of a hormone. That hormone needs to get to a target organ. What is a target organ? It is an organ or a cell that responds to a given hormone. Like I've given an example on the breasts. It could have been kidneys. It could have been the heart. It could have been anything. So depending on what hormone is being released and depending on what it is released for will determine what the target organ is. Right? Remember, please post your questions as we go, and then I will get back to them as soon as possible. All right, let's continue. So an example would be regulating concentration of water in the blood. Okay, so if there's too much water in the blood, the hypothalamus will release. Remember, the hypothalamus was one of the structures in our brain that we did last week. The hypothalamus will release a hormone known as ADH, antidiuretic hormone. Okay, that will go into the kidneys where water will be absorbed. Okay, so our kidneys will be our target organ. Okay, so the hypothalamus will be our endocrine gland, ADH will be the hormone, and our target organ is the kidneys. Right, this is just an example. Right, so let's look at the endocrine system, the overview of the endocrine system. It is made up of a couple of glands. We have the hypothalamus found in the brain, and we have the pituitary gland also found in the brain. Okay, this is also known as the master gland because it releases hormones that stimulate the release of hormones from other organs. Okay, we have the thyroid gland found on the thyroid. We have the pancreas found at the back of the stomach. Okay, we have the adrenal glands found at the top of our kidneys. We have the testes in males. Okay, they also have some hormones that they secrete, but in females we have ovaries. Okay, those are our glands also that release a couple of hormones depending on what regulation is needed in our bodies. Okay, so I did not mention the other hormones because we will not be looking at them in the syllabus. We are only asked to, you will only be asked on the glands that I mentioned now, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the pancreas, the adrenal glands, the testes, and the ovaries. Okay, so from the reproductive system in term 1, you have started with learning some of the hormones that are secreted by the ovaries and the testes. Okay, you can always refer back to term 1's work in your books to see what hormones are being released in the ovaries and the testes and tables. Okay, but we're gonna touch on it quickly in this session. Right, again, I'm just going to remind you guys, if you've got questions, please send them as we go. All right, now let's look at the glands and what they are doing for us. So we've mentioned the hypothalamus in the first slides, right? And we said it secretes a hormone known as ADH. Okay, ADH stands for antidiuretic hormone. Okay, the role of this hormone is to reduce water loss. Okay, how does it reduce water loss? By reducing urine production and reducing sweating. Okay, so if you are dehydrated, more of this hormone is going to be released because we want to conserve as much water as possible. You are already dehydrated. So if you're dehydrated, more of this will be secreted, and then a lot of water will be conserved. Right. But if you are overhydrated, if you have a lot of water, less of this hormone will be secreted. So depending on whether or not you are dehydrated or overhydrated will determine how much of this is secreted. Okay. As you can see, diuretic. Uretic means you are losing water through urine. Anti means we are against you losing water. Antidiuretic hormone. Okay, reducing water loss by reducing urine production. Next gland is the thyroid gland. Okay, this is also overseen by the master gland, the pituitary gland, but we're going to look at that next. So it oversees how this gland works. Okay, so the hormone that's secreted by the thyroid gland is known as thyroxine. Okay, there's a couple of other hormones that are released there, but for your syllabus, we're only focusing on the thyroxine. The purpose of the thyroxine is to regulate the body's metabolism. Okay, so thyroxine will tell your cells when to consume oxygen and when to consume nutrients. Okay, so if you are low on energy, the pituitary gland is going to release its own hormone. We're going to look at that next. The pituitary gland is going to release a thyroid stimulating hormone. It's going to tell the thyroid to secrete thyroxine, okay, which will go into the body, our cells, and tell the cells to respire, cellular respiration. Why? Because energy is needed. So if energy is needed, more of this thyroxine is going to be released because it needs to tell the cells when it needs to produce when to produce energy, or when to consume oxygen, or when to take in nutrients. Right? So the thyroxine regulates the body's metabolism. Okay. Pancreas. Inside the pancreas, we've got two cells. Okay. They're known as the beta cells and the alpha cells. Okay. So those cells, the beta cells inside the pancreas, secretes insulin, and the alpha cells secretes glucagon. All these are found inside the pancreas. Right. So what do? The glucose, the insulin keeps the glucose levels stable. So insulin breaks down glucose, or it reduces glucose in your bloodstream by converting excess glucose into glycogen to be stored in the liver. Okay, so the role of the insulin is to reduce glucose levels in the blood by converting them into glycogen to be stored in the liver, right? Another hormone that's secreted inside the pancreas is known as glucagon. Also, glucagon keeps glucose levels stable. So when they detect that there is too little glucose inside your bloodstream, what they do is they go and take the stored glycogen in the liver and convert it into glucose, so that the glucose levels are brought up. Okay, so you will be looking, or you'll be going more into detail about this process in your next topic, homeostasis. Yeah, I think you're going to be doing that next term. So there you will be looking at all this negative feedback mechanisms and how your bodies bring or makes in your internal environment stable, keeping your water levels stable, keeping your sugar levels stable, your salt levels stable. So you're going to be going more into detail when you do homeostasis in term 3. Right, so those are our first glands that we're going to discuss: the hypothalamus, secreting ADH, that reduces water loss. The thyroid gland releases thyroxine, which regulates the body's metabolism. And we have the pancreas that releases 2 hormones, insulin and glucagon, that keeps glucose levels stable. Right, so if you've got questions, please send them as we go. We will discuss them at the end if there is time. Otherwise, I will send you feedback via email. Okay, you should be getting feedback on last week's session in a day or 2. All right. So sometimes things go wrong in the endocrine system. Sometimes too much hormones are being released, or too little hormones are being released. So whether or not too much hormones are being released or too little being released results in a disorder. Okay, let's start with the thyroid. Okay, when too much thyroxine is released, okay, so this means the pituitary gland is slacking there, not doing what it's supposed to do, because it's the one that's supposed to detect when this hormone is needed. Okay, let's say something goes wrong and it couldn't, right? And too much is being released. Too much thyroxine is being released into the cells of the body. This results in what we call hyperthyroidism. Okay, so too much, hyper. Okay, when you are hyperactive, they say you are. When you are too active, they call it being hyperactive. So if it's too much, it's known as hyper. Too little is known as hypo. Okay, so too little thyroxine is known as hypothyroidism, and too much thyroxine is known as hyperthyroidism. Okay, if too much of this thyroxine is being released, you can get a disorder named goiter, which will result in an enlarged thyroid gland. So your thyroid gland is going to become enlarged and it becomes visible. We can see it. Okay. Other symptoms that result from hyperthyroidism include hunger, weight loss, and anxiety, and insomnia. So some of those disorders that I've mentioned can be a result of hyperthyroidism. Okay. Hypothyroidism symptoms can be when you have too little thyroxine, sluggishness. Some refer to this as being retarded, mentally retarded. Okay, gaining weight, rapid weight gain. Okay, can be one of the symptoms of hypothyroidism. Okay. Again, another disorder that can result with too little or too much secretion of a hormone would be hypoglycemia. This is a result of too little sugar. Remember, hypo means too little. If we have too little sugar, it can result into hypoglycemia. Symptoms include being grumpy, dizzy, confused, hungry, headachy, sweaty, shaky. So the next time you are grumpy, just grab a little sweet, get those sugar levels up and become happy. right? And diabetes is another disorder of the pancreas, right? The next gland that we're going to be looking at is the pituitary gland. As I said, it is also known as the master gland. It secretes a couple of hormones. Okay, so keep up. So the pituitary gland secretes a thyroid stimulating hormone, in short, TSH. What this does is it stimulates the thyroid gland to secrete more thyroxine when it is needed. Okay, so the TSH is secreted by the pituitary gland. Okay, another hormone that's secreted by the pituitary gland is follicle stimulating hormone. You have done this in term 1 when you were busy with the reproductive system. So follicle stimulating hormone stimulates oogenesis, the formation of an egg, and spermatogenesis, the formation of the sperm cell. Okay, so this follicle stimulating hormone plays a role in that. Okay, another hormone that's secreted in the pituitary gland is the luteinizing hormone. Right, this hormone is responsible for stimulating ovulation in ladies. Okay, another hormone secreted by the pituitary gland is prolactin. You can see that lactin over there, you're already thinking milk, right? So this pituitary gland releases a hormone prolactin, which is responsible for stimulating the production of milk. If you have just had a baby, the pituitary gland will be releasing this hormone, the prolactin. Okay, it's gonna keep on releasing it for as long as the baby is nursing, for as long as the baby is breastfeeding. Right, there's more. The pituitary gland also releases the adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. Okay, this stimulates the secretion of the hormones cortisol and aldosterone. You will see where these hormones are released. They are released in the adrenal gland. So the pituitary gland stimulates the adrenal gland to secrete this hormone when they are needed. Okay, they all play roles in our systems. The aldosterone has their own role and cortisone has their own. Right? Phew, this pituitary gland is on fire now. So another gland that is being released, another hormone that's being released by the pituitary gland is the growth hormone. Okay, so the growth hormone promotes skeletal and muscular growth. So this determines how tall you will grow or how short you will be. Okay, so those are our the hormones that are released in the pituitary gland: TSH, FSH, prolactin, GH, and ACTH. Right. So for your exams, you need to know all of these hormones that I've mentioned here and which gland releases them and what role they play. Okay. So disorders in the pituitary gland. Okay, so if there's too much GH, if there's too much growth hormone that is released in early childhood, okay, one of two things, not one of two things, a condition, you can develop a condition called gigantism, okay, little GH can result in dwarfism, okay, so these are our two guys there. Right, so this guy looks like he's got gigantism. Sorry. So this means there is a hyper secretion of the growth hormone. Remember, hype means too much. So there is a hyper secretion, otherwise a hyper secretion of growth hormone. our little guy there, means there was a hyposecretion of our growth hormone. Okay, just a reminder again to please send questions. Please send questions. I apologize for my bad internet. I hope you guys can hear me. If you've got questions, please send them on the question box. All right. Okay. Lastly, we will be looking at the adrenal gland. Remember, it's found where? On our kidneys, at the top of our kidneys. It secretes a couple of hormones, but we're only going to be looking at the two, the adrenaline and aldosterone. So the role of the adrenaline is to help your body prepare for and deal with stress. Okay, so your flight or fight situations, adrenaline will be released to help your body cope and deal with the stress, be it running away from something or whatever stress you are facing. Okay, aldosterone helps regulate salt concentration in the kidneys. Okay, so if there is too much salt in the kidneys, it will be reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. Okay, so this aldosterone helps in regulating those salt levels. Okay, so lastly, sorry, this wasn't our last. We have the reproductive hormones. The females secrete estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is responsible for the development of our secondary sex characteristics, the development of our pubic hair, the development of our breasts, our hips, and so forth. The progesterone is responsible, it prepares your body, it's released after ovulation has taken place. So immediately after the egg has been released, progesterone will be released to help your body prepare for pregnancy. Okay, if you do not get pregnant, or if the egg is not fertilized, then the progesterone levels will decrease. Right? Males secrete testosterone, also responsible for the development of secondary sex characteristics of males. Right. Negative feedback. So this is gonna go into more detail next time when you're doing homeostasis. But for now, I'm just going to introduce it. Okay, so negative feedback is the process of maintaining balance in the internal environment, despite constant changes in the external environment. So your body always needs to maintain balance in the internal environment. Remember, if your temperature rises above normal temperature, rises about 37 degrees Celsius, that can be dangerous. Okay, it can result in result in brain damage. Okay, so your body must always maintain balance in the internal environment. So this means if it's hot outside, your body must make a plan to cool itself down. Okay, if it's cold, it must make a plan to warm itself up. It must always make sure that the normal temperature is maintained. It must make sure that normal glucose is maintained. Okay, so negative feedback mechanism is that process of maintaining balance. Right, so we'll use an example of glucose again. Okay, so if blood glucose increases, okay, the beta cells inside your pancreas will detect it. They will notice that there is a sudden rise in glucose. Okay, so what they're going to do is they're going to release insulin, okay, which will promote the uptake of glucose from the bloodstream. Okay, not only that, insulin also converts glucose into glycogen to be stored. Okay, so when blood glucose increases, the B cells, the beta cells in the pancreas will detect it, release insulin, which will take up that glucose and convert it into glycogen. Again, if there's too little sugar, if you go on a diet and there's too little sugar in your bloodstream, the alpha cells will detect this. And then the pancreas will release glucagon, which will take that stored glycogen and change it into glucose. Okay, so that your glucose levels are balanced. Right? So next I will be giving you tips on answering essay questions. And then we're gonna quickly look at an essay, an example of an essay on this topic, and in conjunction with a topic from the nervous system, right? So the essay question is found in section C of your papers, and it is out of 20 marks, 17 of which will be awarded for content, and 3 will be awarded for the synthesis of your essay. Okay. Section C of your paper consists of an essay question of 20 marks, 17 of which will be awarded for content and 3 for synthesis. Okay, the synthesis will be 3 marks, where they will look if your essay is divided into logical parts according to the question. Okay, so you can get all 3 marks, or they can give you 2 or 1, okay, depending on how you answered your essay question. Okay, so when you get your essay question, the first thing that you need to do is you must read the question carefully and thoroughly. Read the question carefully and thoroughly, and then you must unpack the question by underlining all keywords, and then from that formulate the subtopics. So you read the question carefully and underline all the keywords. Then from those keywords, you will kind of have an idea of what your subtopics are going to be for your essay. Okay, from there you will use a mind map on a rough paper to plan your essay. Okay, so the mind map should not be written in your answer sheet that you're going to submit, but on a rough piece of paper. This is merely to help you write all the key factors so that you don't miss out anything. Remember, this is not a literature essay, so they're not going to give you marks on whether you have a mind map or you have a rough draft. They are not interested in that. This is not an English literature essay. So it is also in your best interest to get to the point. Okay, don't make your sentences too long. They do not count number of words, they count facts when marking your essays. So get straight to the point, tell us what we need to hear, okay, and then don't make your sentences too long. right? They're not going to count the number of words. I know in your English essays, you have to write about 400 to 500 words, and sometimes you run out of things to say. Here, you don't have to. All we want to know is the facts about the question that we have asked. Okay? Do not repeat facts. You will only be marked once. Okay? Sometimes you might want to be clever and write the same thing with different words. Okay? They will see it. Do not repeat facts. You are wasting your own time. Okay? Keep it short, keep it factual. All right. So we will be looking at an example of an essay question next and how to answer it. All right. Is everyone still fine? Can everyone still hear me? Please indicate by a show of hand if you can still hear me. Right, thank you. You can put them down. Okay, so this was taken from a past paper. The essay question was as follows. While walking in the bush, Paul hears a sound which he thinks is the roar of a lion, and he immediately runs to safety. While walking in the bush, Paul hears a sound which he thinks is the roar of a lion. He immediately runs to safety. Describe how he hears the sound and describe the role of adrenaline to ensure that his muscles are able to function efficiently while he runs. Okay, describe how he hears the sound and describe the role of adrenaline to ensure that his muscles are able to function efficiently while he runs away. So we are asked two things here. There's two subtopics here. We are asked to describe how he hears the sound. So we're going to be looking at the process of hearing sound. What happens when you hear sound? Okay. Again, we are asked to describe the role of adrenaline to ensure that his muscles are able to function efficiently while he runs. So those are our two subtopics. So you are asked to describe how he hears the sound, and the role of adrenaline in ensuring that the muscles are able to function efficiently while he runs. Okay, so hearing can give you about 10 of the 17 points. Remember, we said content will give you the 17 marks. How do you know? How can you tell if hearing can give you about 10 points? Study, 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 past papers, past papers, past papers. When you do past, right, you will have to score yourself. When you score yourself, you're going to see that there is a pattern in the amount of marks that are given for certain things. Okay, so if you had studied, you will see you'll get about 10 facts from the hearing part. Okay, so that will give you the 10 marks of the 17 points. This leaves you with 7 more points that you will accumulate while discussing the role of adrenaline. Okay, we will look at how adrenaline helps, or how the adrenaline helps in ensuring that our muscles function efficiently when we are under stress, right? The rest of the 3 marks will be given to the logic in your essay. Right. Let's see how we answer that. So you're gonna write your topic, obviously at the top of your page. You're gonna start with your first subtopic, which was hearing. You were asked to describe hearing. What happens when you hear a sound? Okay, so first the pinna will trap the sound waves from the lion. They will trap it and it will direct the sound waves into the ear canal. So the pinna traps the sound waves and directs them into the ear canal. And then this will cause the tympanic membrane. If you haven't looked at the structure of the ear yet, please do so. Okay. The pinna traps the sound and directs it to the ear canal, where it causes the tympanic membrane to vibrate. The vibration is transmitted to the auditory ossicles. Okay, and the ossicles will amplify the vibration and transmit it to the oval window. The oval window will then vibrate, creating waves. Okay, where in the endolymph of the cochlea. This will then stimulate the organ of Corti, which will convert the wave into an impulse. When it is in impulse format, it will be interpreted. The brain will be able to interpret it. The impulse will then travel along the auditory nerve to the cerebrum. Remember, we said the cerebrum coordinates our hearing. So it will be sent into the cerebrum, where it is interpreted as the roar of the lion. And then now you get ready to run. But in order to run, you needed to have heard it first. Okay, that is why the nervous system is very important. Okay, now our next subtopic, adrenaline. Okay, when you're under stress, more adrenaline is secreted. And more adrenaline will increase the tone of our muscles. And it will also cause the liver to convert glycogen into glucose. Why? We need glucose because we need energy. This glucose needs to be broken down into energy. We need as much energy as possible. Okay, so when adrenaline is secreted, this is what's going to happen. The heart rate is going to be affected. The breathing rate is going to be affected. And the blood vessels are also going to be affected. Okay, so when adrenaline is secreted, the heart rate increases. Why? So that the muscles can receive more glucose and oxygen. Okay, this is needed for cellular respiration. Okay, so the liver plays a role in the conversion of the glycogen. Remember, the glycogen is stored inside the liver. So we need the oxygen and the glucose for cellular respiration to provide the energy for the muscles to contract efficiently. Okay, again, the rate of breathing will increase, right? And the depth of breathing increases so that we can exhale carbon dioxide from the muscle faster and inhale oxygen faster, which is needed where? It is needed for cellular respiration. That oxygen is needed for cellular respiration. So the faster we can inhale it, the better for our muscles. Okay, again, the adrenaline will cause a constriction of our blood vessels in the gut and the skin, and the dilation of the blood vessels on the brain and the muscles. Okay, this allows for more blood to be supplied to this vital vital organs, the brain and the muscles that are needed for us to be able to fly or to run to safety. Right. Just to recap on today's lesson. Okay. So in order to respond to external changes, our endocrine system has a network of glands that secrete the hormones, which will help regulate the physical and chemical processes of the body, as well as our sexual development and growth. Okay. The endocrine glands that we are interested in are the hypothalamus that releases the ADH, okay, to prevent water loss. And then we have the thyroid gland that releases thyroxine to regulate our metabolism. And then we have the pancreas that releases insulin and glucagon that helps in keeping glucose levels stable. And then we have adrenal glands that releases aldosterone and adrenaline helping us deal with stress, aldosterone helping with concentration of salts in our kidneys. Again, we have the testes that releases testosterone that helps in the development of secondary sex characteristics. And then we have the ovaries that release estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen that helps with our development, progesterone that helps in preparing our bodies for implantation if fertilization has occurred. And then we have the master gland, the pituitary gland that releases a couple of hormones that stimulate the glands to secrete their hormones. It releases TSH, it releases LH, luteinizing hormone, it releases prolactin, it releases what else? The growth hormone. Yeah, so that releases our hormones. Right. Thank you guys for joining us today. If you have more questions, please send them now to the question box. I'll receive them and give you feedback. Okay, please send your questions, if any. Please use the slides must not replace your textbook. Use them hand in hand with your textbook. Okay, use them hand in hand with your textbook for now, and then maybe when you are preparing for your final examination, you can use the slides only, because then you will have enough knowledge. You'll have enough background knowledge to be able to answer your examinations. Okay, so use the slides as a supplement tool to your textbook. All right, thank you for attending, guys. Right, until next time, stay safe.